Check, check. Microphone check. Okay, looks like we actually have audio. Let's see if so I've already started this feed one time. Uh, and so if you're watching this on the replay, what happened was I started the feed and apparently my audio was not there. And so I'm restarting this. Today this is a really important session, and I want to invite you, if you're in the breath club. We're going to be answering some really interesting questions. We had two really interesting questions, one of which was less of a question, just more of a topic that a person wanted me to explore. But I just want to start this again by saying thank you to everyone in the Patreon club. This club began 5 years ago this week, I think. It was at least 5 years ago this month. And if you think about what happened 5 years ago, right? You remember where you were, what you were doing? You were probably sitting at home, because 5 years ago to be a breath worker was kind of a rough job, because getting together and breathing together was discouraged. Yes. Did something happen 5 years ago? Well, let's see here. Yeah, 5 years ago, 2020 in mid-March. Yes. Well, all those shutdowns. I don't remember the exact week or that it all came to a halt. Hey, Paul, nice to have you here. It's I don't remember exactly, the dates, right, when we had the shutdown, but it was about 5 years ago today, and that was when all of my workshops, everything got shut down. Of course, you're not supposed to get together to breathe, because what, we wouldn't want that to happen. So it was crazy, right? And so what happened was, I was like, okay, we still need community, we still need breath work. What are we going to do? And it was in that same year that I came out with my book that was called A Practical Guide to Breath Work. This was just such an important group, and I want to thank everybody who started with me 5 years ago. I want to thank you for sticking with me, or if you're a new person to the group, thank you so much for being in the group. And I also want to invite you, if you're not a part of the Breath Club, this month, since it is our anniversary, we're trying to share the love a little bit. So even if you're not a paid member of the Breath Club, even if you're just a free member, you are invited to our breathwork session after this broadcast. So that's at the next hour. And then, of course, I had to restart this broadcast a little later. So I am going to try to get into these topics in just a second. Got some really saucy one. I got a real saucy one. I don't know. Is that something you say? Do you say saucy? But anyway, got a really interesting one today. I got two really interesting ones. One is about touching in the world of breath work, specifically a lot of the scandals that have been going on. And it seems like everyone wants to send me their things that whenever they see them. And I appreciate that. I really do, because it's really gone too far. And I don't mind speaking up about really awful things that happen sometimes in a setting that should never have, where you should always have trust. I'm going to get to talk about that in just a minute, but if you have not joined the Breath Club, now is a great time. For just $5 a month, you get into the Breath Club. This gets you access to the catalog of over 100 different sessions that I've put together over the years. This is based on the science of breath work. So it's not just blood gases. It's not just, we breathe this fast and it's ANS. It's everything, right? So breath work is a lot more complex than just one or two things. And so I apply the science of breath to the art of breath. And we have all kinds of different sessions with all kinds of different techniques and styles. Some of the techniques you would recognize, others, they're things that I've sort of come up with over the years. And I always kid with the Breath Club members that they're my guinea pigs. You can go back through the 5 years. It's crazy. So I have people who do this a lot of times. They're like, okay, I was digging through the past 5 years, and I know when you were really getting into Sudarshan Kriya. Oh, I know whenever you're really getting into Vivation. Oh, I know really whenever you were into Wim Hof. Oh, I know whenever you're getting into. So you can go back and you can look over all these times whenever I was experimenting. I was working through a lot of things over the course of my career, and it's all there in the Breath Club. So whether you're looking for something to improve your HRV, get a better night's sleep, you name it, or just or we've got meditations. There's one that I released. Actually, you can get it for free now on YouTube. I released it a couple years ago in the Breath Club. It's breath and poetry. So this is a breathwork session to poetry over it. So and this particular poem is about it's the head and the heart. I think it's the head and the heart and the lungs had a conversation, or my brain and my heart got a divorce, or something like that. I forget exactly. I need to go back. And give it a listen. So anyway, for just $5, you can join. That's our base tier. And then as you go up in increments of $5, you get extra perks. So for instance, if you're in the $10 tier, you not only get access to all the breath sessions, but you get access to all the breath tips. This month's breath tip is on snoring. And no, I'm not just talking about Buteyko method and CO2 tolerance training. Okay. There's a lot more complexity to snoring than just one technique will help you with. And so I go over the things that have helped me. Oh my God, are you serious, Jesse? You're a breath worker and you've suffered from snoring? Yes. Like I think like 60% of men over 40 snore. Like it's incredibly common, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So this month's, if you're in that tier, you get that one. But you also, anytime you join, you get access to all the ones that came before. I think there's like 40 or 50 breath tips that have added up over the years. Singing is actually something I talk about in this breath tip. So singing is a big thing that I'm into. And if you're into the breath club, so the breath club, we have a lot of sessions that are, we make a lot of noise. So there's sniff, sniff, poo, sing, sniff, sniff, poo, hum. We have these times. And today in the breath club, our breath party after this session, we will be having a little bit of maybe a little music making as well. So anyway, okay. So there are all kinds of other perks. You get access to one of my online courses. You get access to asking me questions that I'm going to talk about on the YouTube live, which is monthly. So this is one of those perks. And so you get to ask me to either speak on any topic you like. Last month, I spoke on the actual origins of the Wim Hof method, breathing technique. And we talked about how, there's a lot of misconceptions that Wim Hof just sort of invented this thing. And in reality, it's clear that it comes from Bhastrika Kumbhaka Pranayama and probably a little influence of rebirthing. But anyway, we go over a lot of those things. If you want to check those out, they're on my channel. This week we're talking about some scandal in the world of breathwork. So if you follow me on Instagram, let's get into it. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen a reel that I did not too long ago. They have this thing on Instagram where you can react, or you can do a stitch. And so I reacted. Someone sent me. So actually, let's see. I'm going to go back. So I have been occasionally getting upset on Instagram and going off. Like, I don't even know if that's a phrase that young people, I went off. But I've been occasionally getting upset, going on Instagram, filming myself being upset, because I'm like, damn it, what is with this? I keep hearing about sexual assault. I keep hearing about, all these things where a person, they ramp people's nervous systems out of control. They actually, they promise, hey, I'm going to take all your trauma away. There's one very popular modality. I really don't want to give them a platform, but they do advertisements all the time. In just 1 hour, you'll overcome anxiety and depression, and it's just completely overlooking the fact that these are complex things that you can't just say, hey, I guarantee this is the cure, right? And while it is something that has absolutely the ability to get you there, you can't just say, hey, this is the cure for this, and I don't care where you're coming from. I don't need to really know much about you or your situation or who you are or anything. I've got the cure for you. This is the cure, and here it is, right? There's so much of this. And the thing is, I came from the nutrition world. So the health and wellness world is something that I have been in since I was, I would say, so for the past 25 years of my life, I have been active in the world of health and wellness. And I came from the nutrition world before. So when I went to college, my family had a nutrition store, and we would sell vitamins and herbs and all this stuff. And there would always be the hot new whatever freshness or whatever, and it would make these major claims like, if you take this pill, it will target belly fat. Okay, this pill, it's not going to, it's somehow it knows, right? Whenever you take this pill, somehow it's not like it's going to target the fat in the way that the human body actually works with fat. It's just that genetically you have a predisposition to put fat in different places. You don't get any control over that. I don't care how many sit-ups or side bends you do. You can't just focus on one place in your body. But of course, this pill is different. There was, and of course, this is whenever, I don't know if you guys remember Insight, male enhancement started taking off. There was all of these things that they would make these major claims. And of course, if you didn't sell that supplement in your supplement shop, you were basically telling everyone, go to the shop that does, because people are very gullible, right? And let me just say, if you're a human being, there is an aspect of you that is just absolutely gullible. And this is just hardwired into our psychology. So I'll give you a little background. And this is going to tell you a little bit more about why this sort of negative stuff is happening in the breathwork world. And then I'm going to talk about specifics as well. But it's important for us to understand what happens and why people are so gullible and why people fall for things that are ridiculous, right? And don't get me wrong, the modality itself might be beneficial, but the claims are it's insane. Some of these claims, like, and just to give you an idea, I know at least one of you probably knows the claim of rebirthing, right? So the original rebirthing claim by Leonard Orr, right? So rebirthing was the sort of the very first breath work in the West, and Leonard Orr made a big claim, right? And if you know what the claim is, maybe keep it to yourself. I don't know. You can you can guess what his claim was, or I know somebody probably knows. I know Paul probably knows. Paul already he knows. But the point is, major claims, right? And so you get these supplements and this is going to do all these things. And the reason why this is two things. One is that the people who are selling the thing are incompetent. Okay. So, I'm saying a lot of things here. Let me give you an idea of why human beings with a good conscience, right? So not really meaning necessarily in a bad way, why we lead other people astray. There is this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And what this is just so the Dunning-Kruger effect is basically, it's been studied where if you don't know anything about a topic, right? You know nothing about it. Well, we tend to realize, okay, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. So don't ask me. But what happens is, and this has been studied multiple times, and you've probably seen it in your life. If you haven't seen it in your life, then you've just overlooked it. It's happened in my life too. So you don't know anything. You know that you don't know anything. Then you learn a little something. Okay, you start to learn a little something. And when I was a kid, they would say, you know enough to be dangerous, right? And what that means is, when you learn a little bit, there's an unconscious part of you that says, well, I don't know that there's anything else about this topic that I don't know. So if I don't know that there's nothing that I don't know, then I must know a lot. And so what happens is you get a person who knows a little bit, who's incredibly confident, even though their competence is not at the level of their confidence. Okay. Competence is down here. Confidence is up there. And what happens is, in these studies, they show, and again, you've probably seen it in your own life, the more you know about a topic, the less confident you get. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. Why would that be? I know more now than I knew before. Wouldn't my confidence level go up with my competence level? That's not actually how it works. The reason for that is because as you learn that there's more things that you didn't know, you start to realize, well, there must be a lot of things that I don't know. I bet there's other things that I don't know that I don't even know, right? And so what we start to see is it takes a while before a person can get that confidence level back. And I will tell you this, so I published multiple books, bestsellers. Like, these things are in multiple languages now, and they're all over the world. People, it's been featured in The Guardian. I've trained psyops and I've trained the first responders and all this stuff, right? I should feel incredibly competent, and I do. Okay. So I do have a great degree of confidence and competence. But the issue here is I still don't feel as confident as I did whenever I was first starting off. Because what happens is as you learn that there's more things that you don't know, you start to have a thing called humility. And so what happens is in the breathwork world, and this is what also happened, for instance, in a lot of the fitness world and a lot of these things, when you don't really know better and you're like, hey, I heard this thing, and I think it's true, you'll go out there with an incredible amount of confidence and say, hey, this thing is true. And you'll come off as incredibly confident. Now, here's the problem. There's also this other cognitive bias that is called the halo effect. Okay. And you can look all these things up. But the halo effect, it is, and here's the thing, like, we have a few different ways as human beings to know if what is coming into us is bad, right? So you can smell it. If it smells rotten, okay, I'm not going to take this in. If you can taste it, and if like your tongue goes numb, or if you start to it tastes really bad or something, like, you'll spit it out, right? When it comes to information, we don't actually have any senses that help us know whether the information is good or bad. So what we do is this other thing where we look for the person who is either talking the most or the person who appears to be the most confident. And we mistake confidence for competence. Okay. And this is going somewhere. Hopefully you see where this is going. So what this means is very intelligent people, very smart people can be led astray very easily because they're looking at others who are, man, I feel really confident. That person is really confident and he's talking a lot. That guy must know what he's talking about. So I'm going to listen to that person. Okay. And the problem is that person could be suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect and their confidence could be misplaced. So it's really important to understand how these things work as we go forward. These are elements of the language of breath, because when you're learning breath work, you're really learning mindset work. There's so much more than just getting high or just having bliss. You're really learning how all of this stuff interacts with each other. So it's a fascinating thing. And hey, Jeremy. So it's a fascinating thing, and it's it's something that we have to watch, and I'm sure you can see it play out. You've seen it. If just think about those two things, right? Incompetent people believe that they're incredibly competent because of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And then people who are looking for answers, they look to the person who has the most confidence. And oftentimes these two things interact. And that's why you see a lot of really smart people. And your intelligence will not help you. I'm sorry. So, and the thing is, this is just part of being human. So you've seen it, I'm sure, in other parts of your life. So having said that, now in the breathwork world, you will see on Instagram, you're going to see it on YouTube, you see it all over the place where people are incredibly confident and they're telling you things that they really don't have any competence about, right? They've heard a few things, they've maybe read a few books, or they've been to a few sessions, and now suddenly they're an expert, right? Give a guy a rope, he thinks he's a cowboy, right? It's just one of these things where it's this leap to confidence, even though the competence level isn't necessarily there. So how does this relate to the scandals that are happening in the world of breathwork? Well, on the one hand, you see people who are sharing a lot of things, like, for instance, the Vitality guy, or they have I forget how many Ds, breath work and all this stuff. They're just sort of throwing the kitchen sink, and they're saying if you're having an experience, it must mean that you're processing emotions and it's a healthy thing, because I don't know any better, right? And they can point to different things, and they're not necessarily completely wrong, because there are times whenever a person will, hey, maybe they'll make some noise, or they'll scream, or they'll cry. These things do happen in some deep breathwork sessions. However, they're not the goal. Okay, so and a lot of times people mistake that. So then you'll see on Instagram that they're putting these things, they're putting people screaming and crying and saying, hey, look how awesome. And there's the commercial I keep seeing on my feed. Are your clients getting this deep of an experience? And it's people crying and screaming and all these things. And it's like, well, I'm not exploiting them. I certainly would not exploit them like you're doing, because that's what's happening, right? They're taking people in a very vulnerable situation. They're putting them in on their Instagram, and they're putting them on video, and they're showing, look, I made a person cry. That must mean that I'm an amazing breath worker. And not only is this incredibly unethical, it's completely wrong. And it leads people who are new to breath work to see this. Okay, I guess that's what breath work is. And I guess I need to be having these experiences in order to have a productive experience. Now, here's the thing that I have learned over the years, and I'm about 10 years deep in professional breathwork practice. And many of those years I was suffering from Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay. So especially the beginning of your career, you know enough to be dangerous. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I was going out there saying, hey, this thing will cure you from cancer or something like that, which you'll also hear some people say, some people claim. By the way, did anybody guess what Leonard Orr claimed rebirthing would do? Anybody want to guess? So, okay, so nobody's going to guess. Here's what Leonard Orr claimed, that if you followed rebirthing, and of course you needed to live according to the elements, and he had, there was all that stuff, so there was some of that. But you talk about an overstatement. Leonard Orr, the father of Western breathwork, claimed that if you followed rebirthing, if you practiced rebirthing, and you lived according to the elements, you would have physical immortality. Like literally, it's not like you would die, but you would go to heaven, or you would die, but like you would be rebirthed, or, into another, something that where it's like you could sort of have some deniable plausibility if, because the inevitable, which is coming after you, right? No, he says, I'm going to live forever. You'll live forever. And, if you think about a real good con, I guess, he, you can always, and that's the thing where it's like you didn't pray hard enough, right? So if a person died and they were rebirthing, it's like, why did that person die? Well, they weren't rebirthing well enough, and they didn't really live according to the elements, I guess. You always just say, well, they weren't praying hard enough. And then what happened? And the only reason, so here's the funny thing. So in 2020, when I was publishing my book, right? Again, 5-year anniversary of the big of the Breath Club. So happy 5 years, happy 5-year birthday, Breath Club. But I was publishing my book, and so I reached out in, I think it was late 2019. I think it was like December or November of 2019. I was like, hey, and this is before COVID hit or anything like that. So it was late 2019, and I was reaching out for an interview with Leonard Orr, and especially I was wanting to talk to him about this whole physical immortality thing. Well, of course, he died September of 2019. So like bad timing on my end, but how do I know, right? So the thing is, like, this space has been riddled with people with these overstatements, right? And just because you are wrong doesn't mean that you were lying. He might have actually believed it. I assume he did. I don't know the guy. I never met the guy. And there's a lot of people out there who are probably well-meaning. And I've always said this, right? Very well-meaning people making overstatements and claims that they should not be making. And they're going out there, and here's the thing. They're probably helping a lot of people too. Okay. So I don't want to just say, when it comes to rebirthing, even though it was ridiculous, this is sort of the mysticism and the weird physical immortality, I don't want to say that it never helped anybody, because it obviously did. There's still rebirthing to this day. There's a lot of people that I know that they were like, yes, it changed my life for the better. It's something that's it's helped me. So here's the funny thing: just because you're wrong doesn't mean you're not actually helping people. So what happens is, okay, so now you've got this, whether it's through Dunning-Kruger effect, you've got incompetence, but you're extremely confident in yourself, or hey, maybe you believe something else. Maybe you're really, skilled at something. Well, you start to see that it helps people. And then you start to attribute that to your secret sauce. And as opposed to crediting the other human being for doing the work, because that's actually what is going to make the difference. I can take you through breath work. I can guide you. I can teach you so many things, right? I can take a person and say, hey, listen, we're going to get your functional breathing back to in order. We're going to get you sleeping right again. We're going to get you your posture. We're going to work on that. We're going to really work on. I'm going to take you into some very deep interoception exercises. I can lead a person, but it takes a person actually saying, I want to do the work. And at the end of the day, it's not it's not sitting there doing breath work that's going to make everything better in your life. It's you saying, I'm going to go take action. I'm going to go do the thing, right? I'm so sad because I don't have a girlfriend, right? I better do breath work all day to make myself feel better. Or okay, start to develop, your relationship with yourself, start to develop your relationship with your emotions. Okay, yeah, we're doing a lot of work with breath work and interoception. This is language of breath 101 stuff. We're working on getting in touch with our emotional intelligence so that we can go have a relationship with another person. But you actually have to go talk to the person, right? You can't just sit there and expect things to change. And this is one of those things I always have a problem with people saying, well, you should just imagine, it's like, because happiness is so elusive, and it is, right? So the philosophers have talked about this for ages. Happiness is something that's very elusive. It's something that, as soon as you feel like you've got the thing that's going to make you happy, right? As soon as you feel like you got that thing, then it's like, oh, I guess I have that thing. Well, what do I not have? And you start looking for the thing you don't have. That's part of the human condition. But the funny thing is, there's these people out there that says, well, because of that, what you should do is just imagine the feeling of having it. Okay, and they'll say all kinds of mystical things, and they'll make all these claims again as if they know what they're talking about. Okay, because they somehow understand physics incredibly well, I guess, or they understand all these different things where it's like, okay, it's amazing how well you do that. And then, of course, the actual quantum physicists are the people who are like, yeah, we don't know. This is really crazy, right? But these speakers, man, they understand. But they'll say, just imagine having this thing, right? And I always say, what are you going to tell that to a person who needs a job? No, the person actually has to have the wherewithal to actually go out and get the job. You're going to tell that to a person who's lonely, or who's hungry, or who has actual needs, right? So so you get a lot of this sort of, it sounds really good, it sounds really sort of attractive, and it does the same thing as those pills that say that they're going to burn belly fat instead of, just you got to wait until, you're just going to have to lose that weight last, right? Because it makes it seem as though there's some kind of a shortcut. And while there's no shortcut, there are things that absolutely are tools that help us to get to where we want to be. And that's where breath work is amazing, right? Because you can start to develop a better relationship with unconscious processes. All these unconscious processes that we've already talked about, you can start to develop a better relationship with. All the physical sensations that scare us all the time, all these things called emotions. Man, it's incredible. You don't have to make these overstatements. And having said that, this is where I'm going to get into the next part, which is why I don't believe you should be touching people during breathwork sessions. Okay, so this is something that I've debated sharing, but if you certify with me, one of the things we talk about is what's appropriate when it comes to a person in a breathwork session. Okay. So there are some times when it's appropriate to touch a person, and these are specifically whenever it comes time. For instance, if there is some kind of a medical condition, if there's some kind of a negative reaction, in some cases you'll have a person who has a seizure in your breathwork session. Now, if you're doing language of breath stuff, I've really made it safe so that you generally don't see those things. But hey, you never know, and it's always good to know what to do if something like that were to happen. So there are some times where it's like, okay, so this person might need an adjustment. Okay. But you'll see on social media, you'll see this everywhere, where you'll have these guys, and man, they're just really working on you, man. And it's like, and it's this weird kind of this. So one of the things that you need to understand is I'm a recovering college professor, and one of the things that I taught was rhetoric. And there's this thing called it's called visual rhetoric. So anytime you see a picture, what is it saying? Right? What is the message that it's trying to convey? Because and in marketing, they're using this on us all the time. They're using it, it's just all the time. And you have to, right? Because you say, okay, come to my retreat. And if you just have me going like this, no, a person wants to say, okay, what's this retreat about? Right? What is the kind of the theme? Show me something that kind of gives me a visual representation of what this thing is all about. So I can't just go, hey, come to my retreat, right? Which, I mean, I used to do that. But now, now I know better. So you do need to know how to do this if you've got a business, or if you want to convey messages. But anytime you look at advertising, especially if you're looking at what I'm talking about now is the breathwork advertising, you want to look at the kind of message that they're conveying. What is it that they're conveying, right? And so you'll see these guys and they're, oh, I'm working on you. I'm doing all this tap, and I'm doing all this other stuff. And they do have some reasons why they're doing it, right? In many cases, they're just mimicking another person who they saw on social media, and the reason I know this is because I've worked with so many people. It's like I say, what exactly are you doing? Because I'll just be, I'm not a jerk about it. I'm just like, what exactly do you think you're doing right now? Well, we're going to enhance this and this and that. Oh, I'm rubbing his vagus nerve, and it's like, no. Now there are, I do want to say there are physical manipulations and there are somatics that can be therapeutic. But one of the reasons why I don't do it myself, okay, and this is something where it is an ethical thing. Again, I don't want to put myself in a position where that person feels like they need me to have a positive experience. Okay. And if you do that, if you're always manipulating, if you're always touching and feeling and doing all this stuff, even if you have no negative ulterior motives, and we're going to talk about those here in just a minute, you're putting yourself in a position where that person is not like, they're going to go home. They're going to like, well, I can do breath work. I can do this sort of thing, but man, I sure do need Jesse to rub my chest and to tap my forehead and to do all these things. Right. So you need to think about, what is the end goal? Not just, do I want to blow this person's mind? You got to think about what's best for the client, what's best for that person who is going through this experience, because it can be very intense. And yes, in that moment, they might say, boy, the best part of it was whenever you rubbed my chest or you tapped me in this place, right? That's fair enough. But if you're really thinking about the person and the longevity of their practice and doing what's best overall, if you're putting yourself at the center of the practice, which is what I see all the time in these reels, and I'll see it all the time where it's like, look at me, I'm making the magic happen. Look at me, I am making this breath. I'm making the breath work somehow, and maybe they need to do that because they don't really know what they're doing with breath work. Burn. That's one of those. That's what is the video where everyone's like, oh, yeah, slam, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, maybe you feel like you need all these touchy feely things. But if you actually can lead a person, and here's the craziest thing. And I know I'm going to take a look at some of these over here because I know I'm getting some great comments over here. And Paul is someone that understands, sometimes the most profound moments in a breathwork session are the most mundane outwardly, right? And so the problem comes down to, and this again is a novice breathworker, you start judging yourself by how intense it looks like the person is having of an experience. And so what happens is you ramp this person up, their ANS is going crazy. You're running risks of actually traumatizing these people, and you don't even realize what you're doing because you're trying to get the person to have this explosion. You're like, they're not crying yet. They're not screaming yet. I'm not having to go to rub them on the chest and all this stuff. And so it starts turning into this thing where it's nothing about the person who's in front of you, nothing about the person who's doing the breath work. It's all about you. And you don't even realize it. And this is what I see all the time. I see it online all the time. And this is, I think, what leads to The next thing I have to talk about, and that's the scandals. I recently was sent a video of what was told to me. The person who sent this to me said this was a breathwork session. Some other people said it wasn't an actual breathwork session, but it does sort of. I mean, it looks like they're doing breathwork, not great breathwork, but it looks like that was the goal. Where this guy is taking his hand, and there's this female doing breathwork. She's lying down, and he's rubbing her tummy and coming up right between her breasts and just jiggling. And it's like, that is wrong on so many levels. But then they put it on Instagram with like heavy music, like, yeah, man, type music. Like, look how awesome this is, right? And the comment that I made on my angry reel, which I apologize, guys, occasionally I get just angry because I love breathwork so much. It's changed my life. It's changed the lives of so many of my clients. I want to see it go forward and not fall into the same traps as we've seen in so many other health modalities and in the nutrition world. Yeah, it was sickening. Exactly, Paul. I mean, it was crazy. What I want to see is that it doesn't go down that path that so many of these other modalities, all these other things have, where it's a bunch of skeevy people, and you really, as soon as you get into it, you're like, man, I'm sort of regretting getting into it. And so I made an angry video about it, and I apologize, or I don't apologize. I'm sorry, not sorry, I guess. You see this all too often, and these are things to look for, right? Does the video make it seem as though the breath worker, right, the facilitator, is doing the work? And here's the funniest thing, guys. Here's the funniest thing. What I have found in my life is that if you're doing it right, the person who is having generally the best experience, right? It's extremely boring as a facilitator. Like, you're watching a person and it's like, they're not screaming, they're not crying all the time, they're not doing all these things, and it's actually, you're like, I'm hoping they're having a good experience. I can't see inside, but it's inside where the magic happens. It's inside where this thing is going on. And so if it's constantly, I need to have this expression of, yes, it's so good, right? If I need that amount of validation all the time from the people that are in front of me, it's about me and it's not about them. So I'm not in favor of all this touching and stuff. And I'm not in favor of making it about you. And here's the problem, or not the problem. Here's the just like me sharing some truth with you. It's that I used to gauge how well I did as a breath worker based off of the reactions in the crowd. That's because originally I learned from a school of breath work that did the exact same thing. Okay. And boy, if people were screaming and crying at the end, you did great. And so I didn't know any better. And it took a long time to break out of that. And now, I'm not saying if you cry or if you laugh or if you scream, it's a bad thing, but that's not like the target. Okay. So those things do happen. They do happen. And it's kind of like, laughing, right? So when you laugh at something that's actually funny, that's awesome. But the goal, but if you're just laughing all the time, you're just it's kind of silly, right? It's just kind of dumb, right? So there are times whenever it's like, okay, great. That's an appropriate, expression in that moment. It's not the goal. And so much of the time, I would say more times than not, if you're a facilitator and you're facilitating in a responsible way, you're going to think, I don't even know. Like, after a while, you'll get used to it and you'll be like, I know that what's going on now is exactly what needs to go on. But at first you're like, I'm used to this whole where they should be screaming and crying and I got to be working on them. And now they're just laying there doing the breath and it almost looks like they're in a coma. And then they'll come out, they're like, oh my God, that was amazing, right? And you're like, because you do want them to have a good experience. But here's the thing, it's not about you. So I've gone on and on about this, and I appreciate you hanging with me. I did promise, there was one other question from the Breath Club, and it was from Eric. Eric, if you're still hanging out with me, I appreciate you. Eric, he asked about nootropics. He's taking my favorite nootropic, Magic Mind. I'm not sponsored by them anymore. It's just like whenever they want to sponsor me, I'm like, yes, send me more Magic Mind. So I don't have a code for you or anything, but I took it this morning. I take Magic Mind all the time. And so Eric was just wondering about my experience with Magic Mind. I find that that Magic Mind starts to sort of ramp up. So it's not cheap. I'll just be honest, it's not cheap, but it's not crazy expensive either. And what I find is that it usually takes about a few days, and then you're sort of in this zone. It really kind of helps me when I'm writing, when I'm going through emails, when I'm creating things. Like right now, I got to create a whole bunch of stuff. So it's like, I'm a bit overwhelmed, and it's really cool that it gives you some mental energy without making you feel like static energy. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. Eric, I would just suggest, try taking it every day for 7 days, see what you think. I have other friends that they don't like taking it every day. Other friends of mine, they're like, I only take it whenever I know that I'm doing deep work. And on the days I'm not doing deep work, I'm not going to take it. I'm just doing it because they don't like how they feel. Like, for instance, because it really helps you stay focused in some real calm energy. But it's, for some people, they feel like it's not great for being social. So just sort of experiment with it. I would say for me, it's hard for me not to be social. I'm like, Paul, let's see here. I've got a bunch of comments over here. So I just want to get to these, and then if you'd like, guys, it's open breathwork at the next hour. We're going to do some singing. We're going to do some we're going to do some super ventilation breathwork. I mean, it's going to be blissful breathwork, and we'll get some good music on it too. So let's see. Sophomore means wise fool. Oh, I love it, Nathan. We're going to nerd out, brother. It probably just means little, but you can think of it as a warning. Either just enough to make new mistakes, or you've learned that you don't. Exactly. Brian Johnson, yes. Paul. Brian Johnson is one of those guys that I still listen to his stuff because I can't help but, it's one of those things you can't help but look, and you're like, maybe there's a few things I could learn. But then he's talking about measuring his son's like nighttime erections and things like that. Maybe I'm not going to get that close to my son. I love my son, but I'm not going to do something like that. Let's see here. I agree, Paul. Paul says, I think formalizing a code of ethics around breathwork would be useful. And here's one of the things about the code of ethics. I have actually reached out to, there is a group, it's a nonprofit group in the United States that they propose that that's their hope, or that's like their goal. I was very disappointed. And in most of these groups that get together and they're like, okay, I'm not going to say any of their names, but in most of those groups, I've been really disappointed in that they don't really have any teeth, right? So it is a unregulated industry. They don't have any teeth. So it means that, yeah, we can ostracize you. We can put it that you're not good on our website, but who looks at that website? No one cares, because you're spending a whole bunch of money on ads, and everybody is seeing the ads. They're not seeing this obscure website that says, don't go to this guy's breathwork session. I think what we need, and I've been in talks with some people about this, is basically like a better business bureau, a thing where you can just go check and say, okay, has this person had any complaints? Has this person and then really every breath worker should say, hey, check on this website, check to, always check before you talk to somebody. It's really it's something that I think there would be some easy fixes. But it takes people who are in this industry, competing with each other for views and likes. It's an attention market right now, and it's always been an attention market, but it's more so now than any other time. So it would take some goodwill from a lot of people who are maybe seeing themselves as competitors. And this is where I've been very fortunate to see some really awesome people in the world of breath work and work with people in the world of breath work that are just really amazing people who are all about collaboration, understanding that we all do, we all have to make a living, but at the same time, you know, there should only be room for people in this industry who are being ethical about it. Now, once you say that, then you have to decide what ethical is, and then you'll have a person who would disagree with me about the somatics, right? So you'll have a person who disagrees with me about touching people while doing breath work, and maybe they've never had a problem, and everybody, and so then it goes down that rabbit trail. but I think it's something that is going to have to happen, or there's what sadly enough might happen is that there will be some kind of a crackdown from a government agency or something like that in the future, where it's like, okay, you have to have XYZ degree and be, some kind of, I don't know, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think you're right though, that there needs to be some kind of a agreed upon code of ethics. And with Vivation, you have to sign a code of ethics, which I love that about the Vivation thing. So, let's see here. Let's see. Anyway, guys, well, hey, listen, it is getting close to the next hour. I'm going to have to go over and get ready for the Breath Club's breath party. If you would like, you can join us today. It is a day that we're just really giving back. This is a birthday present to everybody. But I do want to thank everybody for being a part of the Breath Club, for all of the members who are in the Patreon. And if you haven't joined, please join. It's a wonderful group, and it's a fantastic place to get into breath and learn a little bit more and to have community. So thanks everybody for being here, and I will see you next month. Bye-bye.